Welcome to a brief demonstration on how to do a watercolor background pour over a large masked image. It's a great way to do an image transfer by taking one of your own photographs and just enlarging it as large as you can on bond paper, and then you cut around, use it as a template to cut around on the, you need white freezer paper, doesn't matter what brand. You'll put the white freezer paper face down and then you'll iron it on like an iron-on in the old days. So this is the masked image. We're going to do the watercolor pour around the masked image. You can, I'll be using for this demonstration P.H. Martin Radiant Concentrated Watercolors. Just put 3 drops in and then add a little bit of water. You can use whatever color combinations you want. I'm going for greens and blues in the background behind the hyacinth. And then there's a whole range of colors here. It also works with traditional tube watercolors, whatever your brand is that you prefer. Put some squirt in the bottom of a little bathroom drink cup the size of a pea, and then put a little bit of water. You can see you want it, the color, the density, however much you want your value. And then the first step, it should, ideally you should put it on a masked so that the watercolor paper doesn't ripple as much. And the first step is going to be to wet the entire paper, because it, just like you're doing any kind of large pour surface, if you were doing a sky or the ocean, you want to do wet in wet so that the colors flow more easily. This iron-on patch in the middle, if you will, the masked area, isn't going to be perfect. Some of the edges might bleed. I love this particular process for portraits. I do this a lot for portraits. It's also an unpredictable way to do a botanical. So you want to make sure as you tip it that everything is wet. If there's dry patches, just like when you do a watercolor painting, it'll stick and it won't move smoothly. So you also definitely want to have something to take your drips. And I marked which way is up for my image. It doesn't really matter so much on a floral piece, but it was something that you wanted to know which way was up. So you're going to take your 3 colors and pour them around randomly, and then you're going to mix it around and then drain it off. If you want to, you can put little pieces of saran wrap and wad them up around the perimeter for it to dry. You can also put some rock salt if you want to, put a little textured, so that way the background has even more interesting things going on. So let's just do our pour. Just kind of pour, literally pour it on in random places, and the colors will mix together in different ways. And usually I do this with more color variation, but I was going for a plant kind of look, background deep into the heart of the yard somewhere, so I was going for kind of festive botanical colors. You can get your fingers in and make sure it touches all the way through. So kind of, you can see the mist spots here where it didn't get wet. That's why it's not flowing. So you're going to get your finger a little in there. Same thing on the edge. You want the color to go all the way around, and then try and keep your interesting pattern, because you're going to lose some of it when you drain it off. And then at this point, if you have your saran wrap handy, which I forgot to do, you would rest your saran wrap on here, and it would give you some different types of texture. And that's an interesting way, just to put a little piece of saran wrap and just kind of wad it up in whatever fashion. A little bit here. Since I chose similar colors, there's not a lot of diversity in the color, but clearly if you're going to put red and purple, you have a lot more color variations going on in the background. But you can still see how this is going to add color and texture behind your art. Once this is dried completely, dry it flat, I'm going to put mine outside in the yard and let it dry outside. And then you'll lift up the pieces of saran wrap and you'll pull back, gently pull back your masked area, but you want it to be completely dry before you do that. And again, you can use whatever color combinations. Here's some examples, and clearly if you put some radical color combinations, you're going to have a lot more diversity in your pour.